because they paused trading, which they
hey guys, this is Pat D's Money Me. We're basically looking into the latest news with AMC and GameStop.
I would say if people don't
basically talking to the CEO of Robinhood and what happened when they suspended trading.
At some point, we need to recognize that piling on more and more regulations only increases complexity and does not help investors. Question for Ms. Schultz. Despite the volatility and the frenzy of media and social media activity, it seems to me like the markets functioned as they were supposed to during this situation, that markets are not broken. In fact, they are working well. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that.
Hey,
okay,
Adam.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think most reasonable people that are listening to this would agree that there are regulations in place. The SEC has those to pause activities that could be harmful, not only to the markets, but to the individual investors. And so what I'm understanding you saying is that it did work in the way it was supposed to.
As the facts that I know now, it does appear to have worked the way it was supposed to. This is not a sign to me that the market is broken.
Thank you. Mr. Griffin, what are some of the issues that policymakers should consider in the T+2, T+1, T+0 debate?
So this is something that I'm doing that down the road when I'm doing my live Weeble, that I can stream into news that is active and fresh with C-SPAN, Bloomberg, CNBC, that if I want to pull up a 10-minute clip. So that's why I was testing out that
to be an expert on these issues. So I will give you my
if I was waiting in between, I would have that music going. So I do appreciate you guys' patience.
And the question is how long does that journey take? From T2 to T1, which reduces the amount of capital required by broker-dealers to meet the needs of their customers. That reduction in capital will be meaningful. It would have been very helpful to Robinhood during this period of time. Reduces counterparty risk holistically, which is good for everybody in the market. We should push toward T1. As we go to same-day settlement, you now bring into question the complexity of intraday movement, and you bring into play the necessity for all systems to be functioning every moment of every day with no room for error. At a T1 settlement cycle,
let me remind the members that we're going to have a series of hearings. Today is the first. There will be probably two more. I didn't hear anyone here today say that they were ready to pile on regulations. So let's make sure we know that our statements are accurate. Mr. Foster, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and to our witnesses. Mr. Tennant, I'd like to follow up a little bit on payment for order flow and best order execution issues. Democratization of finance is a good and noble goal, but for democracy to work, consumers need transparency and high quality information, and not only about fees, but about order execution quality. Your customers actually don't care directly about who you subcontract order execution to or any payment for order flow, but they need a simple way to compare the execution quality between your app and competing apps or other accounts. And while institutional investors can afford to run their own tests, and they do, and I'm sure Mr. Griffin is quite often on the receiving end of those tests and trying to measure up to his competitors to compete for market share there. The institutional investors have the market power to demand best execution statistics for their prime brokers. And everyday investors do not get the same transparency. In fact, I believe there's an SEC rule 606, that requires brokers to disclose at least some order execution data to institutional investors. But this requirement does not apply to retail investors. So, Mr. Tennant, since Robinhood's mission is to democratize finance for all, I ask, what are the mechanisms that you would accept and support to provide transparent order execution quality statistics so that your customers can engage in a clean apples to apples comparison between other brokers, between your app and other people's apps in terms of the total cost of trading?
Thank you, Congressman, for that very important question. I'm generally in favor of a greater amount of transparency than what we've typically seen in the financial industry. And recently, Robinhood and me personally have engaged publicly on the topic of payment for order flow, short selling, and of course, T+2 and real-time settlement. We do publish 606s via Robinhood Securities that detail our payment for order flow arrangements with various market makers. And just this past year, the industry implemented more detailed 606 requirements, which we of course conform to. Also, back in December of 2020, we released a public page on our website that provided detail about the execution quality, including price improvement that our customers received. And we're proud to announce in 2020, our customers received in aggregate over $1 billion of price improvement on their executions.
Right, but that's not a comparison to your competitors. You know, there are a lot of questions about the accuracy of the best execution reference price. And independent of whether it should be improved, it seems like if I was a customer of you or one of your competitors, what I'd want to see is, you know, I just executed a trade of $2,000 and on average I got X% better or worse than a reference price. And then over time, and see not only the trade that I just executed, but perhaps a running average over the last month or two that you can compare to the running.
So we're listening to the first of the hearings with Robinhood in regards when they did suspended trading or reduced the trading in some of the stocks that had high short interest, such as GameStop, AMC, EXPR.
That way, in the name of transparency to customers.
Congressman, this is a very interesting topic to me. I'd love to have the conversation. I don't know if this is the right forum to necessarily ideate and brainstorm on all the solutions, but I just want to say I'd be happy to engage with this in a detailed forum and figure out the right path.
Okay, well, yeah, we do intend to continue to engage with the industry on this subject because it's very easy to make payment for order flow sound really creepy. You know, you're basically selling a list of rubes to the sharks. Okay. On the other hand, you make part of an argument that this can net out positive for consumers, but for it to fully net out positive, they have to be able to make the apples to apples comparison. And so that's, I think really important issue. And I think that probably your reaction to that, if you found your customers were leaving you because of poor execution quality, you would do what large funds do, which is to split your order flow between multiple order execution firms, and then demand of them the best order execution and move your business to whoever does the best for your customers.
Yes, Congressman, we already do that. We have 7.
Time has expired. Mr. Mooney, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
She cut him right off.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So let me just start by saying that last Congress, 30 of my Democrat colleagues, 4 of whom on this very committee, co-sponsored a bill that would impose a financial transaction tax on the purchase of securities and certain derivatives. And just recently,
see, even these representatives don't know how to use the right camera angle.
Democrats renewed the call. Many Democrats anyway renewed the call for a financial transaction tax. On just January 28th, Congresswoman Ileana Omar tweeted, "How about this? Financial transaction tax now." Congressman Peter DeFazio is the lead sponsor of the bill. He's already put the bill back in for this session of Congress. It's now House Resolution 328 of 2000. So it's called the Wall Street Tax Act of 2021. I actually have a copy of it from the last session here. It's in again now. And he says, Congressman DeFazio says that a financial transaction tax would, quote, help create a more level playing field for Main Street. So with that background, Mr. Tennant, this question is directed to you. The Robinhood platform has more than 13 million users, and most of them are small dollar retail investors. If the federal government levied a 0.1% transaction tax on the sale of securities, and I know one of my colleagues, French Hill, my good friend, mentioned this earlier, but I want to expand upon a little more. How would that 0.1% transaction tax on the sale of securities affect your platform and the retail investors that are your customers?
Thank you, Congressman, and we'd be happy to engage in this discussion much more in the future. A 10 basis point financial transaction tax would eat into the returns of our customers, which, as you pointed out, are largely smaller investors. And in that sense, it would be a cost to the retail investor. Of course, that would have to be weighed against the potential benefits of this tax. And I know it's a more complicated issue than meets the eye at first glance.
Okay, well, thank you for that answer. My next question is actually for Jennifer Schlepp. I know you spent your career specializing in financial regulation. In your expert opinion, would a financial transaction tax directly prevent fraud or market manipulation?
No, I don't think a financial transaction tax would have an effect on fraud or manipulation. I also don't think that it ultimately, financial transaction taxes often fail to raise money, and they distort trading in a way that's not necessarily foreseen initially by the tax. And I'd like to just add in there as well that the financial transaction taxes, while they initially might seem like a small imposition on an individual investor, those taxes often hurt individual investors and their long-term retirement goals by affecting the institutions that also do the trading in mutual funds and with retirement money. I don't think a financial transaction tax is a good idea.
And a quick follow-up to that, Mr. Schlepp, what do you think a financial transaction tax would have done anything to prevent the market volatility and disruption we saw just this past January?
No, I don't think it's related here. There's been some discussion that it might have decreased the amount of trading and thus changed the volatility. It's not my opinion that would have had any effect on
so they're doing live hearings. Well, and look, they're using like Zoom, and they're talking about what happened. GameStop, who wins, loses when short sellers, social media, and retail investors collide. As far as what happened with Robinhood a couple weeks ago, when stocks were being shorted and then they were being bought. You got GameStop basically that ran from like 20 to 480, and then they started restricting how many shares you could buy in Robinhood. Several brokers, not just Robinhood, were guilty of this, and not allowing people to really have a free capital market in buying and selling stocks. So I'm showing a little bit of this again. There are definitely people interested in watching this.
Ms. Beatty, you're recognized for 5 minutes. Ms. Beatty?
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, and thank you to the witnesses. My first question is to the CEO, President Ken Griffin. In the first 3 quarters of 2020, your company paid online brokerages like Robinhood $700 million for their order flow. Do you believe that brokers like Robinhood,
they're talking about order flow, and what has happened the last couple of years, basically, zero commissions to buy and sell stocks. They don't charge nothing. They're making the money on margin. But understanding order flow and how money is made in that form
a better execution for American
is something that I'm learning myself.
So I'm going to take that as a yes, since you said they go further. Then can you tell me, why did your company urge the SEC to ban the payment for order flow models in a filing to the SEC?
Congressman, that is a terrific question. That filing relates to the U.S. options market. It's a filing back, I believe, in 2004. And in the
all right, I just wanted to share this with you. This part, I appreciate you guys can give me a thumbs up, and just did this spontaneous, and appreciate the support.